Oh, hi there. I see you're a fellow man of culture. Lego is perhaps the most famous thing to come out of Denmark, but do these building blocks truly represent everything about Denmark's past? Some might even wonder how a nation of Vikings ended up being the best minimalist designers, how rough seafaring explorers evolved into classy fashionistas. Well, simply too many questions to answer, but have no fear, and come join me on a journey through the history of Denmark. What's up everyone, it's Tim here and welcome back to History City. So let's be honest, most of us haven't got a clue about Denmark's history besides the Vikings. But our story of Denmark begins only slightly before the Viking era. It's especially hard to pinpoint the early history of Denmark, as mythology and history were often intermixed. But one thing we know for sure was that early inhabitants of Denmark included the Jutes, Angles, and of course the Danes. During the Iron Age, Roman historians recorded the existence of trade between these North Germanic groups with the empire. While the Jutes and Angles went over to England to fight as mercenaries, the Danes jumped on the opportunity to grab some free land. Danish society at this point was still very much tribal, and there wasn't any centralized monarchy or anything of the like. While petty kings and chieftains existed, oftentimes landowners and farmers with the most land and property can get a bid for the crown. Ha! I have the most farmland and cows, therefore I must be king. Listen people, I have the most chickens and I own 20 boats. Plus, I'm pretty good at arm wrestling, so you must choose me as king. Hey, you can't be king, you don't even have that much land. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm also the son of Thor. Yes, that's right. Early kings and chieftains in Denmark would often proclaim connection with the Norse gods for legitimacy, and the fact that early Danish history doesn't clearly define a separation between mythology and history makes the whole situation much more blurry. The Danes' influence over Europe had been minimal as of this point, that is, until some monks in an English monastery noticed some scary-looking dudes coming to their shores on boats. The Viking era officially began in the year 792, when the holy island of Lindisfarne was raided by a force of Danes. But even today, many historians and scholars are still debating why the Scandinavians became the much-feared Vikings. Some say it's due to overpopulation, some say they were fighting back the Christians, some say they did it just to get some cash and booty, or maybe it's all of the above. After Lindisfarne, the Vikings continued to raid and eventually settle on the eastern coast of England for the next few centuries. Implementing Danish customs and laws in the occupied regions, the eastern occupied part of England became known as Danelaw. But what made the Vikings feared and superior in terms of warfare was their longships, long and double-ended ships that allowed easy access in narrow rivers, efficient mobility, and even being able to bypass hostile land forces. And just to get it clear, Vikings did not wear tight leather or dress like goths. And sorry to crush your childhood, but those horn helmets, yeah, they weren't real either. It was simply an invented concept created by opera composers during the 1800s. The Danish settlers left quite a legacy in England, especially in our modern English language. Think of some common words that we use in daily life, such as awkward, cake, or ugly. All of them originated from the Old Norse language spoken by the Danes. Denmark's Viking expansion continued for the next few centuries, with the raids reaching all the way from Poland to Germany to France to Spain to Portugal and even Italy. Mamma mia. The Danish influence over England was in the end an unstable one. Every now and then the English would kick out the Vikings only for them to come back later. Several English kings were even Danes themselves, most notably Canute the Great, who controlled Denmark, Norway, England, and even a bit of Scotland. What a beast. It is commonly believed that the Viking era ended in 1066, with the Norman invasion of England. While it may seem like defeat for the Danes, with them eventually embracing feudalism and the customs of their southern neighbors, it was Denmark who had the last laugh. That victory can be attributed to one man, Rollo. Being one of the most famous Viking warriors to have existed, Rollo was an impressive Viking in his own might. Raiding northern France continuously, the feared Viking warrior and the king of West Francia eventually settled on an agreement.
Merde. Alright, you dirty Dane. If you agree to stop raiding my coasts, I'll give you parts of northern France, as long as you would defend the kingdom against your other Viking friends.
Say no more.
And you have to become Catholic too.
Screw Odin. Hello, Jesus.
And you marry my daughter.
Can a man ask for a better deal? Rollo's descendants eventually assimilated into French culture. And long story short, they successfully invaded England in 1066, became kings themselves, leading to Queen Elizabeth II becoming one of their descendants. Denmark, what a comeback! After Denmark was Christianized by King Harald Bluetooth, and yes, Bluetooth came from his name. During the late 10th century, the Danish monarchy took part in several crusades against the pagan peoples of northeastern Europe. During the crusade in modern-day Tallinn, the Danes were losing a battle against the Estonian tribes, until, allegedly, a red piece of cloth with a white cross in the middle fell from the heavens and gave the Crusaders the inspiration they desperately needed. And from then on, the Dannebrog became the national flag of Denmark, making it the oldest continuously used national flag in the world. While many may consider Denmark's power to have peaked during the Viking years, it only got stronger by the late Middle Ages. As the Scandinavian kingdoms gradually unified, an intense rivalry grew between Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. These kingdoms were almost consistently at war with each other, all vying for supremacy in Northern Europe. But if there's one thing that would unify the Scandinavian kingdoms, it would be the Germans. But the threat from the south didn't come from a German kingdom or state, but rather an alliance of businessmen and merchants. Known as the Hanseatic League, the German Merchant Alliance had a monopoly in the Baltic Sea, and was the biggest obstacle to Danish expansion. Running short on cash and worried about invasions from the Germans, the Danes, Swedes, and Norwegians put aside their differences and formed the Kalmar Union in 1397. The unification of the three kingdoms was meant to protect Scandinavia from German influence and secure the kingdom's economic interests in the Baltic Sea. But in no way were the kingdoms treated equally and fairly. Hey Norway, why don't you go fetch me some water? Hey Sweden, guess who's the boss? Me. And yeah, I'm gonna need your money for my next war. Hey Norway, you're gonna sell Orkney and Shetland to Scotland. Wait, why? 'Cause I need the money. But I don't want to. They're nice islands. Don't make me disappointed in you, son. You know what? I'm sick with this union. I'm not gonna let Denmark bully me forever. Norway, come on, let's get out of here. Aw, well, that sucks. You, on the other hand, you're going nowhere. Because of Denmark's unfair treatment towards the Union's junior kingdoms, Sweden's revolt led to the end of the Union in 1523. But little Norway, on the other hand, stayed with big brother Denmark. The early 1500s was also a period of chaos for Denmark, since it had to deal with both Sweden leaving the Union, as well as the Protestant Reformation. The adoption of the Protestant faith in Denmark wasn't a completely smooth process, since the ruling king, Christian II, was still Catholic. Long story short, Christian II was deposed for being too much of a bully, but the death of his successor, Frederick, led to a civil war between the Catholic Christian II and the Protestant Christian III. You'll soon notice that Denmark really likes to name their kings Christian. Anyway, with the support from Protestant Sweden and the capable General Johan Rantzau, Christian III came out on top, and Protestantism was victorious. The consequences of the Protestant victory was long-lasting, with Catholic property being confiscated by the state, bishops getting kicked out, and the majority of Denmark today still being nominally Protestant. Even with the brief alliance with Sweden, the bad blood between the Danes and the Swedes turned the two into bitter rivals very quickly. So much so that the two countries were almost consistently at war with each other for the next 300 years. From the 1600s onwards, under the leadership of another King Christian, Denmark tried to become the champion of the Protestant cause, and became an early leader in the Protestant side of the 30 Years' War, a devastating religious war in Europe that killed 1/3 of the German population. But Denmark's defeats in the early phases of the war led to Sweden's emergence as the Protestants' new leader. While both countries shared the Protestant faith, Denmark's hatred for Sweden overwhelmed the coming cause, and Denmark flipped to the Catholic camp just to smite the Swedes. But things didn't go well for the Danes at all, and a combination of the Torstenson War and numerous failed naval engagements meant Denmark had to give up a lot of her land to the new Swedish Empire. Many of the wars between the two countries revolved around the region of Scania, one of the most important areas in Northern Europe. You might wonder, what's so important about Scania? Well, since 1429, the Danish implemented a tax on all shipments crossing the Sound, which was the area between Copenhagen, the capital, and Scania. Known as the Sound Toll, this tax provided almost 2/3 of Denmark's income, and secured Denmark's place as the foremost naval power in Northern Europe. Yet Denmark's several defeats from the wars with Sweden ended with the loss of Scania, and losing Scania hit the Danish coffers hard. In order to overcome this new economic burden, the Danes looked back to the Viking roots and decided exploration is the way. But unlike their Viking ancestors, the Danes went above and beyond and established settlements across the world, ranging from the Gold Coast in Ghana to Tranquebar in India and even the Caribbean Virgin Islands. For a while, Denmark truly was Mr. Worldwide. By the 1800s, Denmark's wealth and prosperity increased due to its neutrality in European affairs, even though the kingdom was attacked by the British Navy due to its decision to not fight Napoleonic France. Denmark experienced its golden age from 1800 to 1850. Featuring artists such as Christopher Wilhelm Eckersberg and Constantine Hansen, composers like Niels Gade, and most importantly, the author Hans Christian Andersen and philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. With works such as The Emperor's New Clothes, The Little Mermaid, and The Ugly Duckling, albeit much darker than Disney's adaptations, Andersen's books continue to influence the imagination of children to this very day. Kierkegaard's pioneering Christian existentialist philosophy made a profound impact in the world of philosophy that can be felt in modern times, putting Denmark on every philosopher's map. But for the Danes, the 19th century went downhill very quickly. The British attack during the Napoleonic Wars led to Denmark's bankruptcy, and Norway, Denmark's longtime partner, was even ceded to Sweden. While Denmark still managed to keep the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and Greenland, Denmark's lack of money gave the government no choice but to sell its African and Indian holdings to the British. In 1864, Denmark even had to give up the long-held territory of Schleswig-Holstein to Prussia and Austria in an era of growing German nationalism. With almost all of their foreign territories gone, Denmark's influence faded at a rapid speed. However, one good thing that came out of all this chaos was the liberalization of Denmark, with living standards and rights of the average citizen massively increasing following the nearby trend of Western Europe. Yet with all this going on, Denmark finally caught its big break as it entered into the brave new world of the 20th century. For years, Denmark pursued a policy of neutrality, preserving peace within the kingdom and a gradual economic improvement. But the question was, how long could Denmark maintain its neutrality? With the hellhole that was World War I enveloping all the great powers of Europe, Denmark once again managed to escape with its famed neutrality, even winning a prize for not joining. By the end of the war, northern Schleswig was returned to Denmark. The booming creativity of 20s avant-garde Europe also led to the phenomenon of Scandinavian minimalist design in Denmark's urban centers. Things seem to be looking up for little Denmark. During the interwar years, Denmark experienced the most pivotal moment in its history, and that moment came in 1932. In the year 1932, Denmark was experiencing the disaster known as the Great Depression. Businesses were closing, inflation skyrocketed, and bankruptcy loomed everywhere. To save his woodshop, carpenter Ole Kirk Christensen began working with his company to create wooden toys.
Alright folks, we're gonna need a name for our company. What shall we call it?
How about Legio? That name sucks. I think we should give the company a memorable name, a fun name, one that brings joy to children around the world. Let's call it Lego.
What about Christensen's fun wooden toys?
Thus, Lego was born, its popularity exploding in the 1970s after the transition from wooden to plastic bricks, and becoming one of the most popular and successful toy companies internationally today. By the late 30s, the Nazis loomed ever closer to the invasion of Denmark, and Denmark was desperate to sign a non-aggression pact with Germany. But Denmark made the biggest mistake many countries made during the 30s, which is never trust the Nazis. After the German invasion of Poland in September 1939, Denmark was among Germany's first targets in the Second World War, and on April 9, 1940, the Nazis blitzed their way to Copenhagen. The German invasion of Denmark was pretty much a knife cutting through hot butter, with the Danes capitulating in just 4 hours. Given the quick capitulation of the Danish forces, the Nazi occupation of Denmark was lenient compared to occupied countries. While a number of Danes did serve under the Nazi regime in the Frikorps Danmark, the Danish resistance movement successfully evacuated over 7,000 of the country's Jews to neutral Sweden from 1940 to 1945. With the end of the war in 1945, Denmark was in a much better position for an economic resurgence compared to the war-torn nations of Europe. And under the leadership of several social democratic governments, Denmark adopted the Nordic welfare model, where trade unions had the power to bargain for increased wages as well as the implementation of universal welfare, while maintaining a fixed economy, a blend of capitalism and socialism. Although Denmark was one of the first members of NATO and eventually the European Union, it was one of its more reluctant members. But if there is any good news to emerge from all this, it would be a renewed friendship between Denmark and Sweden in the EU. And now they're the best of friends. Okay, maybe not. But even though Denmark may be seen as a tiny country in Northern Europe today, its historical influence certainly surpasses its borders. For giving the world Lego, Carlsberg, Google Maps, and Mads Mikkelsen, the world thanks you, Denmark, and we wish you a hyggelig rest of the year. Hope you all enjoyed this brief history of Denmark, and feel free to like and subscribe to help this channel grow. And if you would like to help out in future episodes about your countries, feel free to contact me in the email in the description. And thank you all for your support, and this Asian historian is getting ever closer to achieving his dreams.
About Denmark's past. Blah blah blah, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, stop. Blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, blah 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 blah.